Hello, good evening, and welcome into a Red Friday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Palos, joined by superstar Katie Marr as we break down the big weekend in football ahead, high school, college, and the pros. We're going to start with the biggest fish to fry in the Kansas City sports media landscape. On Monday night, the Chiefs going to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars on Monday Night Football. The Chiefs 3.5-point road favorites in that game. Oddsmakers setting the over-under total at 45.5 points. But Jacksonville, guys, they have forced 13 takeaways so far this season. 3 more than any other team in football. They are very good at taking that football away. In injury news, mostly good news for the Chiefs. Everyone really practiced this week, but cornerback Christian Fulton, one of their big offseason acquisitions, a corner from the LA Chargers, he is questionable, dealing with an ankle injury. Hopeful that we'll see him out there on Monday night. And then the Jags, they're dealing with a couple injuries here that may impact the game. One of their backup running backs questionable with a shoulder injury, a wide receiver questionable with a shoulder injury, and they have 3 offensive linemen who are all questionable, 2 of them dealing with knee injuries, 1 with an elbow. So, Katie, Chiefs 3.5-point favorites. I know you were out there at the facility today. You caught it with Matt Nagy. You caught it with Steve Spagnuolo, Dave Tobe, and Chris Jones. But speaking of the coordinators, what was some of the top takeaways you heard today out there?
Yeah, they are by no means doubting these Jaguars. I mean, we've always kind of talked about in the past, the Jaguars are the lowly Jaguars, and, they're not really much to worry about. But they respect Trevor Lawrence. They respect Etienne in the backfield, and they respect the defense because of what you just said when it comes to the takeaways. Granted, the Jaguars haven't had the hardest of schedules to start the season. I think it gets a little more difficult when talking about playing the Chiefs. So I do think that has played a factor into the fact that they've had 13 takeaways leading the NFL so far, because they just haven't been playing as high caliber of teams. But that being said, they're not overlooking this opponent, because, we all know the second you get confident in yourself after a big win like they just had against the Ravens, and then you get a little too confident, and then you go, we're playing the Jaguars next. Like, that's when you lose on the road and you get upset. Almost happened to the Chiefs and in Carolina last year. So you can never overlook anybody in the NFL because, as Andy Reid says a lot, the disparity it's so small. These teams, there's really not that much of a difference between who's really, really, really good, and you never know when an upset can happen, especially in prime time. But that being said, we know Patrick Mahomes typically plays pretty well in primetime games. So I'm not too concerned about the Chiefs pulling out the win in this one. I think it might be a little bit closer than we'd like, maybe, simply because on the road, sometimes they play down to the level of their opponents, in my opinion, especially when on the road. So, yeah.
I'm excited for this game on Monday night, and I really like what I heard actually today from offensive coordinator Matt Nagy. He's like, yeah, we had a great performance last week, but we need to have another one on Monday night, because just because they did it last week against the Ravens, that does not mean that they're going to do it on Monday night against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know a lot of Chiefs fans and people in the media have been very complimentary of the Chiefs, and rightfully so after their big win last Sunday against the Ravens, but it's a whole new ballgame this week. We know the Ravens were banged up. We know the Ravens were playing a lot of the players that before the season, they did not envision starting for them. So now the Chiefs are going to have to go up against a unit that is pretty much at full strength and is very good at taking the football away. Now, Katie, we did this last week. We're going to do it again this week. I want to talk about the Chiefs' path to victory and maybe players of the game, because for me, I think the path to victory has got to include not turning over the football. That we all know Jacksonville's elite at taking that ball away. What do you think? If the Chiefs win on Monday night, how's it going to look?
Yeah, well, rain might play a factor into this one because Jacksonville is currently being hit by a little bit of a hurricane this weekend. I'm no weather forecaster, but that's what I hear about the conditions, and I think it is there's a good chance it's going to rain on Monday night. And that would be the Chiefs' first rain game of the season. We know the ball gets slippery. It's always way easier to turn the ball over in conditions like that. So that would be my biggest worry. The Chiefs only have 1 turnover this season on offense, so I'm honestly not too concerned about it. However, if weather is a factor, that concerns me a little bit, simply because the guys haven't been exposed to that yet. But when we talk about players of the game, last week I said Patrick Mahomes because in showdowns like Chiefs-Ravens, it always comes down to the star quarterbacks, which it ended up being the case. He had four touchdowns. He was named the AFC Offensive Player of the Week for the first time in 2 seasons. I think this one comes down I'm gonna say the X factor. I'm gonna say Xavier Worthy, because I mean we finally saw him get back into it last week, and he looked amazing. He made the offense look even more amazing because he just opened everything up. But what I feel like also we don't talk enough about with Xavier Worthy, yeah, he's fast and he can get downfield really quickly, but what he can do with the ball after he catches it, like we don't talk about that enough, because I mean he's making guys miss, breaking some ankles, turning around and spin cycle and all that fun stuff. He was so fun to watch last week, and I think because he kind of got back into it, he's going to feel even better this next week. And I think that's also really important for the offense, just continue to build that chemistry and that confidence, because then when Rashee Rice comes back into the mix in just a few weeks, if he comes back in, it's kind of like how they talk about in baseball. You don't want to call up a rookie when your team is at its lowest point. There's a lot of pressure that comes onto them to succeed and be the reason they all of a sudden start to play well. You want the Chiefs offense to be rolling when Rashee Rice comes back in, so he can just easily come back in. There's not too much pressure on him to really succeed, and he's not going to get all the targets and all that stuff. So I think if Xavier Worthy goes even further than he went last week, boom, X factor, as we like to say.
Yeah, I like what you said there about Xavier Worthy, because he really can do so many more things than just the speed element that he brings to the game. I feel like oftentimes in the NFL, or not in the NFL, but in football in general, when you have a fast wide receiver, they just kind of get put in a box as a deep threat, a guy that takes the cover off the defense, takes the top off the defense, I should say. But Xavier is really turned into a complete wide receiver. I know there was a clip going viral after the game on Sunday where he just routed the guy up. The defender had absolutely no chance. So Xavier Worthy is a very polished player, so we're happy to kind of see the impact that he's been having since he returned to the football field. But for me, players of the game, this is a very interesting situation, because we know Jacksonville with their new head coach, former offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Liam Cohen. He's one of the best offensive minds in all of football. We know the Jags are banged up along the offensive line, so I'm looking at maybe a Chris Jones or a George Karlaftis, and Karlaftis has been playing really well in these last two games. Those two guys
last week.
Yeah, they need to get after the quarterback and really affect the game, because I think if the Chiefs get after Trevor Lawrence early, especially with that banged-up offensive line that the Jags will have, that provides a very clear path to victory for the Chiefs. And then on offense, I really, really love what you said about Xavier Worthy, but I feel like I'm going to have to go in a different direction. I really want to see maybe another big game out of Patrick Mahomes. I know last week he had 4 touchdowns, but the Chiefs scored 37 points on Sunday. That was the first time they had scored that many points in 2 years. They always say quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. I want to see Mr. Mahomes have another big game on Monday Night Football, and he's been playing phenomenal so far this year.
You know what I will say? You picked Juwan Taylor as your offensive player of the game last week, and he had no false starts, and then he got engaged after.
Big week for Juwan
Taylor.
Yeah, I saw some people making some jokes. Did he kind of pop up out of his stance before she said yes? So there are definitely some jokes there, but good to see Juwan Taylor, have a good game. We're certainly all looking forward to that. But another big topic here with the Chiefs, and we actually are going to kind of go with this with heavy hearts. Last week, Chris Jones added to the injury report late on Saturday evening. He had to go to a family funeral down in Mississippi, and then he arrived back in Kansas City and arrived at Arrowhead Stadium about a half hour before kickoff. He was out there for the very first snap of the game on Sunday. He was out there actually for his player intro, ran out onto the field. And he did speak after the game, but obviously it was just so fresh. Now he's had a little bit of time to process, obviously, his loss and his emotions. And today he met with the media here in Kansas City. Katie, you were there when Chris Jones spoke today. How was Chris doing? And then how was all that?
Yeah, and to be put in perspective, I just double checked the time of when I was in the tunnel when he arrived last Sunday. He got there at 2:55, and kickoff was at 3:25, and he was out there for the tunnel entrance with all the smoke and the cheerleaders and the crowd and all that stuff. So he did talk a little bit today about actually what did he have to do. Someone asked him, what did your warm-up look like? How'd you get game ready so quickly? And he said, I'm just always game ready. I don't stretch before the game. I'm just always ready. And I was like, that's cold. I like that. I respect that, Stone Cold Chris Jones. But he, it was cool that he opened up about that at the podium today. Someone just started off by asking him, would you be comfortable talking about your aunt? What was her name? What did she mean to you? And he talked all about how important she was to him, and it was a really sweet moment. But he told us that he found out that she passed away. She had a heart attack during the Chiefs-Giants game last Sunday night. And he found out right after the game. So he kind of said, I was so excited. I had a sack, and I was my family called me, and then they hit me with the news. So kind of, rough night for him, of course. But yeah, the funeral was in his hometown of Houston, Mississippi, Sunday morning, and he was able to get on a flight that lasted a little bit under an hour, and he landed in KC and got I'm pretty sure a police escort to the stadium. So it was kind of crazy, but Steve Spagnuolo also talked about, what it meant to see the dedication from him to get back in time. And something that Spags was really impressed with was the fact that the team, as soon as Chris got there, they were waiting for him and just kind of rallied around him, and they were all happy to see him, and the team responded really well. So I thought that was a really cool note as well.
Yeah, it was certainly very touching to kind of hear not only Chris Jones after Sunday's game talk about what it meant to him, but also Patrick Mahomes, some of the other players talking about how they wanted to play for Chris, they wanted to be there for Chris. Because I know we see these guys as professional athletes, they make millions of dollars, they're under the lights, they get a lot of glory and a lot of shine. But I mean, underneath all that, they're just like you and me. They're two regular people. They got to put on socks and shoes in the morning and go about their daily lives. And Chris Jones, I mean, he lost his aunt. This is a guy that wears his emotions on his sleeve. You could tell that had a big impact on him. So very cool to see Chris not only get out there and play football, but also use he said he uses it as his escape from reality, to be able to see not only the way that his teammates kind of reacted around him, but the fan base and the organization kind of rallying around one of their own with Chris Jones. So Chris, obviously very sorry for your loss, and hope everything's okay with you and your family. All right, moving on. We have a big slate of college football tomorrow. Two of our local teams are in action. The Kansas Jayhawks are traveling down to Orlando to take on the UCF Golden Knights. KU actually left KCI today around 12 noon, or at least that was their original plan, because they want to make sure that they get down to Florida in plenty of time to get to the hotel and rested. KU 3-2, UCF is 3-1. What I was most intrigued by is KU is actually a road favorite in this game. The Jayhawks are 3.5-point favorites down there at UCF. But Katie, I went up to Lawrence on Monday to kind of talk about KU just being 1-6 in their last 7 one-possession games. I asked if there was a theme Lance Leipold is trying to instill in the group this week of practice, and he said he wanted to see better practice habits out of them Monday through Friday. For me, this raised a huge alarm, giant red flag. What do you kind of make of those comments from Lance Leipold saying his team needs to practice harder after 5 games?
Why wasn't that already the case? that would be my red flag, I suppose. I mean, yeah, I think the fan base just has so many questions of why is this still happening? Last year it was okay, well, they didn't like the offensive coordinator, and these weird plays were being called, and the offense wasn't it wasn't melding, it just wasn't working out there, and they have a new defensive coordinator this year, so maybe that's better. And why is the not being able to close out games thing still happening? That feels like more of a coaching thing, and I'm not targeting any specific coach with that. I'm just saying as a whole, there's a pattern there. This is a for the most part brand new team. They had graduated most of their starters last year. The only returning starters on this roster are really Jalen Daniels, kind of Daniel Highshaw Jr. when he is healthy enough to play, which he typically isn't.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime soon.
No.
I know on Monday, Leipold said there's no timetable there.
Yeah, and so question mark there. And then you have Bryce Foster and a few key guys on defense, but really other than that, these are all brand new guys who have been, maybe they've been in the program for a while, or maybe they're transfers coming in. That's my red flag here, is the fact that these are all new guys. Why is the same problem of not being able to close out games happening? And I'm not going to blame the defense for, obviously you give up 600 yards of offense. Yeah, it's partially your fault. But, Jalen Daniels fumbled within the 5. That can't happen. He acknowledged that after the game. He hasn't fumbled within the 5. Maybe they get a touchdown and they win that game. Who knows? A lot of ifs, ands, buts, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, all that stuff. But there's a problem in Lawrence, and if they don't fix it soon, bad things are going to continue to happen. And I think they need to win this game at UCF, because if they fall into 2-loss hole in the Big 12 and then have to go on the road to Texas Tech, that's going to be bad.
Yeah.
I think they need to get their confidence back at UCF this week, and I don't think UCF is very good, so I think they should.
Yeah, well, I think UCF is going to come out obviously very motivated in this game because they were 3-0. They just traveled to Manhattan, Kansas, and left there with a 2-touchdown loss. I mean, UCF is obviously dealing with some injuries to the quarterback position. We'll kind of see how that all plays out this week. But KU, I mean, they have got to come out and win this game if they want to achieve their season goals, just as Katie said, because they cannot drop to a 2-loss hole there in conference, because in the Big 12, we know it's going to be very competitive, but people just aren't going to look at KU in the same light if they lose this game. People are going to be like, oh, KU's now falling to 3-3, and that's not what we want to see. But one bright spot I think we really have to talk about with the Jayhawks is wide receiver Emmanuel Henderson. He's an Alabama transfer. We didn't really know how he was going to play here in the first couple games, but boy, Katie, through 5 games, he has been phenomenal. I know you've seen Emmanuel in person. The track speed, I'm curious, when you're watching that in person, just how much faster is he than the other players on the field?
Oh, he's fast. I mean, I watched him run 2 downfield passes, all just completely outrunning, and there were defenders behind him that were close to him, and he just was able to surge past them. And I mean, that's what makes the difference between getting a touchdown and not scoring a touchdown. So it's cool to see in person. He was kind of slow to start early in the season, week 1, week 2. It was kind of Cam Pickett. Against Mizzou, it was Deshaun Hanukkah. We weren't seeing as much of Emmanuel Henderson. He was kick returning.
He had a big drop against Missouri.
Yeah, he was kick returning. But other than that, we didn't see him too involved in the offense. And I was kind of like, what's going on there? Like, why aren't we seeing this highly talked about? Everyone's excited about Emmanuel Henderson. But then maybe that's just growing pains and, coming in as a transfer. And now that he's gotten going, I mean, he accounted for over 200 of Jalen Daniels' 445 passing yards against Cincinnati. So a total breakout game for Henderson. So cool to see. And it was a big question mark this year of who was going to fill those wide receiver holes with that, star trio graduating last year. So fun to see Emmanuel Henderson kind of step up there.
Yeah, people are definitely going to be. What are you saying?
He's needed.
Yeah, no, he is needed, and people certainly are going to be game planning for him now after he's kind of broken out here in the last 2 weeks. But hey, good news for KU. They have a 6th-year starting quarterback going down there to UCF. Yeah. I know he did fumble this last week and late in the game, but I don't think, guys, experience means so much in college football. I don't think Jalen Daniels is going to let that happen again this season. But
he's having a year.
That's why they play the games. We're going to see what happens. All right, K-State going on the road tomorrow. They're going to take on the Baylor Bears. K-State is 2-3. Baylor is 3-2. So obviously K-State trying to build on that win from last week against UCF. But odds makers, though, saying that Baylor is a big favorite at home. The Baylor Bears, 5.5-point favorites. The over-under in this game, 60 points. So they're really expecting quite a bit of offense. Now, Katie, Avery Johnson ran the ball last week, and the offense looked a little bit more different. Like, there's a lot more life there. So I know you've talked about this for years, but are you surprised to see more life with Avery running?
No. I've been saying it every single week.
Yeah, Coach Kleiman, I think you got to have Katie as be your offensive coordinator.
No, please don't.
No, so certainly been cool to see that. But Baylor, they've lost this year to Auburn and Oklahoma State, but they beat SMU, Samford, and Oklahoma. Auburn, and they have 2 losses. But okay. Long story. Baylor, though, I'm not quite sure why they're 5.5-point favorites here against K-State. I really don't think their quality of wins are that great. I think K-State here has an opportunity to make a statement because a lot of people, it seems, think that Baylor is a lot better than them. Katie, what do you think K-State's going to do this weekend? I
think home field advantage also has something to do with it because Waco is a tough place to play. Like, they defend home field. I'm not surprised that Baylor's favored 5.5. I think if I had to pick who I think would win this game, I would pick Baylor, but I also wouldn't be surprised if K-State does come out with the win. Like I said, Baylor's a hard place to play, but also I think K-State I don't think UCF is very good. So it's great that they won by 2 touchdowns. They should have. They also should have beat Army. So I wouldn't be surprised if K-State does squeak out this win. They obviously need to, being in a hole in conference play and, needing to measure up to everyone else. But I think the key to that, like I said, is letting Avery loose. And Dylan Edwards being healthy again certainly opens that up. I mean, I'm sure something that went into not letting him run as much the first few weeks was the fact that with Dylan Edwards out, means the defense kind of expecting Avery Johnson to run. Now that he's back in, it kind of lets them have a lot more options. So I think that's safer for, I mean, their number one thing is they want to keep Avery Johnson safe, but it's like, at what point do you keep losing games because you won't take the risk of running your quarterback, who is a quarterback whose specialty is his legs? And he's a great thrower too, but his real talent is when he can move around and be mobile. So I really hope that continues. Like I said, I think Dylan Edwards being back has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, can't take away Avery's superpower, certainly his legs, but yeah, I love what you said there about Dylan Edwards. Last week he busted a long touchdown run. The offense looked a lot different, obviously, with their RB1 out there. So K-State will see if they can get a win tomorrow at Baylor. All right, it's Friday night, so we have a big night of Friday Night Lights. I'll quickly go through the games that we're kind of keeping tabs on this week. And there are a bunch of good games, a lot of really good games on the Missouri side of the state line this week. Neil Jones is at our game of the week. Raymore Peculiar against Lee Summit West. Now, we know these two teams maybe don't have the best records, but Neil's working on a pretty cool feature with a former player out there. You're going to want to see that coming up at 6, and then also tonight on Friday Night Blitz at 10 p.m. But then, boy, we have two absolutely huge matchups on the Missouri side. Blue Springs South and Lee Summit North are meeting at Lee Summit North. I would argue that those are maybe two of the 3-4 best teams in our viewing area meeting on the gridiron. A lot on the line out there tonight. We'll have a recap of that one. Then also Katy is going to go up to Platte City. Smithville taking on Platte County. Platte County, they have D1 talent all over the field. They've been phenomenal so far.
I would put Platte County's football team against like a poor Division II football team, and I think they would win.
All right,
like, really, truly.
That would be crazy. I think
because
the D2.
I think Platte County.
Yeah, Platte County's got some. They've got some guys. They certainly do. Elsewhere, how about this one? Staley is going to Liberty North. Liberty North is going to debut their new Patrick Mahomes Gladiator logo jerseys tonight out there for their homecoming game, taking on Staley. Katie's also going to go to Liberty, the Big Blue Machine, taking on Park Hill. That'll be a good game. Down in Rockhurst undefeated so far. They're taking on Blue Springs. The Blue Springs Wildcats, another good group. That one's unbelievable. And then how about this one? 4-1 Grain Valley taking on 5-0 Kearney. And now I know you might think some of these are smaller communities. Kearney went to Park Hill and beat them. Then they went to North Kansas City and beat them. These Kearney Bulldogs, guys, they're for real. And they have a really good quarterback in Carter Temple. Elsewhere, Kansas side, Shawnee Mission Northwest taking on Mill Valley. Oh, another good one out of Aquinas. Bishop Miege taking on St. Thomas Aquinas. That's a rivalry that goes back for a really long time. Those two teams do not like each other. That'll be a fun one. And the DeSoto's going out to the Topeka area to take on Shawnee Heights. But I wanted to save some time here for the back end of our show because Katie is, we know Katie does a lot of great things for us here at KCTV5. She breaks down the Chiefs. She breaks down the Royals. She breaks down college football. She really knows it all. But Katie might be the most knowledgeable Swiftie in the house. So, Katie, this seems like your perfect spot. Last night, Life of a Showgirl released, I think, at 11 p.m., you were telling me. Mm-hmm. Your Spotify did not crash.
It did not
How
crash.
many times have you listened through? Give us a breakdown of this album. What are we thinking here?
Quite literally nonstop. I stayed up way too late last night, which was bad because I had to get up early and go to Chiefs today. So knock on me for that. But I stayed up till about 1 a.m., so I listened to it for about 2 hours straight. I like to do, I look up the lyrics for every song the first time that I hear it, so I feel like I can really understand it, and right away I'm able to clock, like, there are 7 songs about Travis Kelce on this album.
7?
Yes.
How many songs are there on the album?
12.
Oh, wow. Okay. How about that, Travis?
The majority. So if you like Travis Kelce, you got to give this album a listen. I'll tell you which ones are about him, okay? Again, obviously I haven't talked to Taylor, but like this is my Swiftie expertise that is making these assumptions. We got The Fate of Ophelia, which is the lead music video. It's going to come out eventually. Elizabeth Taylor. Opalite, which is my personal favorite on the album. It's a bop. It's so fun. I'm obsessed. Eldest Daughter, Wish List, Wood, and Honey. So those are your songs to listen to if you want to hear the Travis Kelce songs. And of course, you can go back to the Tortured Poets department and listen to The Alchemy and So High School. Those also fall in the Travis category. As a longtime Swiftie, I've been a Swiftie since I was 6 years old, okay? So I'm a day oneer since Our Song in her country days, okay? All I've ever wanted is for this girl to find love, and she has. And I'm so very happy that I just happened to also cover her fiance with the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
Well, Taylor's really
so my
become
worlds just get to collide every day.
Yeah, she certainly has become the queen of the kingdom. And a really
Yes.
cool factoid about all this with those two getting together is just the crossover of kind of like families and communities, like men and women getting together, not only to watch football, but also kind of enjoy this Taylor Swift stuff. So I got to ask, I've heard a couple songs on the album. My wife was listening to it last night. Katie, I know Taylor has a bunch of different genres of albums. Where does this one fall?
It's a fantastic question, Mark, and I'll tell you, because I've already decided on this. Okay, if 1989, which has won a Grammy for Album of the Year, I consider 1989 to be a perfect pop album in just every facet. And the producers on that album, Max Martin and Shellback, are the same guys who they are the only producers on this album. So I already knew walking in it was going to have a similar vibe. I think that and 1989 is the album when she really transitioned into pop. And was not any country anymore. She had moved to New York. She was all by herself. She was making friends. She had these girl groups, all this fun stuff. It was like fun city vibes. This is 1989's. If it had a daughter, and that daughter is like happy and in love. That's what I would describe it as. I think it's a nearly perfect pop album. She's got about one slow song on there. Travis Kelce told us when they went on New Heights, he said these songs were all bangers, and Travis Kelce was not wrong. There's only really like one like slow song, which you have to expect, which is always track 5 on all of Taylor Swift's albums. Her track 5 is always the most emotional, sad song on there. Yes, fun fact, and that's Eldest Daughter, which is about Travis. So another reason why I need to listen to it. But yes, this reminds me a lot of 1989, but like more mature, happy, and in love. So.
All right, well, I have
Final
one more
answer.
question for you here, because I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people out there like me that are fans of the Chiefs, that are kind of fans of Taylor, that we are fans of Taylor Swift, but maybe we're not necessarily going to listen to this album cover to cover. What are maybe the big takeaways? Does she mention Travis a lot? Does she mention the Chiefs a lot? Or is there anything maybe you can share that kind of stood out to you on your first or second listen that was like, oh, like that was actually interesting to learn or hear?
The second time that I listened to The Fate of Ophelia, she has a lyric in there about, she says, I pledge allegiance to something, to your team.
Oh.
So she said which is like, when you think about it, Taylor grew up an Eagles fan, but she didn't really know football. Like she literally thought, like she asked Jason, and on one of her early dates, she said this in the New Heights podcast, she asked Travis, like, what was it like going up against your brother in the Super Bowl when you guys like saw each other across, like literally right in front of each other on the field? And Travis was like, we both play offense. We don't see each other on the field. So Taylor didn't know anything about football, but she grew up an Eagles fan because her dad was an Eagles fan and he knew Andy Reid and all that fun stuff. But she has shifted that alliance over. She's a full Chiefs fan now. So that was really the only Chiefs reference in there, but a lot of this was really just, and this album was written like over a year ago when she was on the Eras tour. That's why it's called The Life of a Showgirl. And if you recall, Travis spent a lot of that time with her when they were venturing around the world and exploring the world and all that stuff. So she wrote a lot of this when all that was happening and she's falling in love. She just knew. She knew that Travis was the one. There's stuff in there, and this was before they got engaged, where she literally says in these songs, like, I already know I'm getting a rock on my hand. Like, she literally says that.
How about that?
So the love is real, folks. It is real. And if you listen to Wishlist, it's all about how she all of a sudden just wants to like have a backyard and a driveway with a basketball hoop.
How about that?
Kids.
One of the best love stories of modern times started right here in the heart of Jackson County at Arrowhead Stadium with Travis Kelce shooting his shot. Very cool to see how Taylor Swift
she does start out by saying that. Like literally the first lyric on the entire album,
The
Fate of Ophelia. She says, I heard you calling on the megaphone.
Wow.
You want to see me all alone.
How about that? Guys, look at that. That's the most famous woman, I would say, on planet Earth, referencing us right here in Kansas City. And she's done a phenomenal job supporting the city of Kansas City and supporting the Chiefs. So all you Chiefs fans out there, there. I know Taylor probably doesn't need a lot of help, but go out there and support her the way that she supports
Listen to
us,
the album.
because she's part of our community now. She really is, and we really like all the stuff that she does. Also, big pop weekend here in Kansas City. Chapel Roan's going to be out at Liberty Memorial. Katie's going to be there tonight, and the best thing, I love what we're doing with the new KCTV5 tower. Yesterday lit, I believe, for Taylor Swift. Today lit for Chapel Roan in pink. So very exciting weekend here in Kansas City. Katie, anything else before we get out of here?
I'm very excited to be in the Pink Pony Club tomorrow night.
Yeah, she's going to be there. It's going to be exciting. I think my wife is actually also going to be there. So very good time out here in Kansas City, celebrating our pop icons as well as our sports team. So catch Katie, Neil, and myself tonight on Friday Night Blitz as we bring you the best in local high school football. Until then, take care, guys. Thank you.